Okay, let's talk about that feeling. You know the one I mean.
Hmm.
Where, like, everything's going great, maybe even, really well.
Right. Objectively successful.
Exactly. But inside, there's this little voice, this nagging feeling
Mm-hmm.
that you're just, I don't know, faking it. That you're not really as good as people think.
Yeah, that sense that you're about to be found out, like the jig's up any minute now.
Totally. Like your success is just luck or timing or something else, not you. And the whole thing could just fall apart.
That feeling is incredibly common, actually. And it has a name. Impostor syndrome.
Impostor syndrome. Right.
And it's more than just a bit of self-doubt here and there. It's this deep-seated internal belief that you're not as competent as people perceive you to be.
Even with evidence, like awards or promotions.
Especially with evidence. Sometimes the evidence just doesn't seem to stick internally. Millions of people feel this way, often, in silence, feeling kind of ashamed or alone in it. And a really key thing right from the start, this isn't actually about your ability, it's about the gap, the disconnect between what you believe inside and what's happening outside.
What always gets me is how widespread it is.
Mm.
Like, it doesn't care if you have a PhD or run a company or...
Not at all. It's completely indiscriminate. And sometimes, the more you achieve, the louder that inner critic can get. It's quite the paradox.
Right. You think about famous writers, successful entrepreneurs, doctors, artists, even world leaders have talked about this.
Absolutely. People you'd assume are incredibly confident. They can still carry this secret feeling of not belonging, like the success isn't really theirs. It's this hidden struggle behind a lot of, seemingly perfect exteriors.
So here's the big question then, isn't it?
Mm.
What if that voice inside, the one saying you're a fraud, what if it's just wrong?
Exactly.
What if you're definitely not alone in feeling this? And maybe, just maybe, it's not a sign of weakness, but, I don't know, a sign you're pushing yourself, growing.
Precisely. And that's really what we want to dig into today in this deep dive. Our mission, if you will, is to unpack what imposter syndrome really is. Where does it come from? How does it actually show up in our lives?
Yeah, the different ways it manifests.
Right. And the impact it has, often subtly, on our confidence, even our joy. And importantly, we want to look at some real practical tools. How can you start to step out of that shadow?
Mm-hmm. Tools to actually embrace what you can do.
Yes. Think of this as a kind of truth-telling session. And seriously, if you're listening and that feeling resonates that I don't deserve this, this is absolutely for you.
Because it thrives in silence, right?
It absolutely thrives in silence and isolation. It makes you think you're the only one.
Yeah.
But the minute you name it, the minute you hear that others feel it too, that's honestly the first step. That's when it starts to lose some of its power.
Okay, so let's define it a bit more clearly then. Imposter syndrome. You said it's that gap.
Yeah, that chasm,
Yeah.
really, between how others see you, your accomplishments, your skills, and how you see yourself. It's feeling like a pretender.
Constantly waiting to be exposed.
It's exactly
Yeah.
on guard. And the key thing here is it's not just being humble. It's a real belief that your achievements are somehow invalid, like they don't count.
And it goes beyond just normal doubt.
Oh, definitely. It's deeper. Like you might get genuine praise. Someone tells you you did great work.
Yeah.
And instead of feeling good, you feel, uncomfortable, maybe even embarrassed, like they've made a mistake.
Or you hit a big goal, finish a huge project.
Right. And instead of satisfaction, you feel like you just scraped by or you got lucky or it wasn't that hard anyway. It's this feeling that it's never quite good enough or it doesn't really reflect your true and supposedly inadequate self.
So praise feels wrong and success feels temporary. Borrowed.
Borrowed time is a great way to put it, yeah.
And it starts small, doesn't it? Like those little moments.
Absolutely. It often takes root in seemingly minor things. You dismiss a compliment automatically. Oh, it was nothing.
And they even could have done it.
Or you get a great opportunity and the first feeling isn't excitement, it's fear. Dread, almost.
Fear of not being good enough for it.
Exactly. Fear of being in over your head. Fear that this time they'll see you don't belong. So those small dismissals, they build up. They feed this larger story you tell yourself about being inadequate.
And how does this actually, like, show up in behavior?
Well, it manifests in a surprising number of ways. For some, it's procrastination.
Really? Why?
Because the fear of failure is so intense, it's easier not to start. If you don't try, you can't fail, right?
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
For others, it's the complete opposite. Overworking.
Working too hard.
Way too hard. This relentless drive to prove you're worthy, to show everyone, maybe even yourself, that you deserve your spot. Constantly going above and beyond.
Trying to justify your existence almost.
Pretty much. It can also look like minimizing your ideas in meetings, always attributing success to luck or help from others, never to your own skills.
Right. Never taking credit.
Never. And the big irony, as we touched on, is that it often hits high achievers the hardest. People with really high standards who care deeply, who reflect a lot, but are driven by this core fear of not being good enough.
So that fear of failure can make you either freeze up or work yourself into the ground.
Exactly. Avoidance or overcompensation, both driven by the same underlying fear.
So just to be clear, this isn't like a personal failing. It's not that someone is inherently weak.
Not at all. That's a really important point. It's better understood as a psychological pattern, a loop you get stuck in.
Okay.
Your perception gets distorted by anxiety, by comparing yourself to others, by perfectionism, by that fear of failure. And so success feels fake, borrowed, unearned.
And that becomes a habit.
It can absolutely become a habit. Downplaying wins, dismissing your strengths, undermining your own worth, until you're left with that thought, everyone else gets it, why don't I? But it's crucial to remember, like we said, this isn't a clinical diagnosis in the DSM sense. It's not a formal disorder. It's a very, very common emotional experience that psychologists have studied quite a bit.
Right. Okay. So if it's a pattern, where does the pattern start? Let's talk origins.
Good question. Because it doesn't just appear out of nowhere, right? It's really shaped by this mix of our personal history and the broader messages we get from the world around us.
Okay.
So the actual term or concept was first highlighted back in 1978. Psychologists Pauline Clance and Suzanne Imes.
Clance and Imes. Okay.
Their first studies were focused on high-achieving women who, despite all the evidence, degrees, awards, success, felt they weren't really intelligent and had somehow fooled everyone.
Focus on women initially.
Initially, yes, but over time, the term evolved to impostor syndrome, and it became really clear this wasn't just a female phenomenon. It cuts across all demographics.
And you mentioned personal history. So childhood, did that play a big role?
Yeah. Oh, a huge role. Our early environments really set the stage for how we think about success and ourselves.
Like what?
Well, think about praise. If praise was rare growing up, or if it was always conditional, you did great, but you might learn to just dismiss your achievements.
Or not trust the praise when it comes.
Exactly. Or if you were constantly compared to others, maybe a sibling who was seen as the smart one or the successful one, that can instill a lifelong habit of comparison that just eats away at your own sense of competence.
What about being called the smart one? That sounds good, but...
It can backfire. It creates this immense pressure to always be smart, always be perfect. One mistake feels like proof you were never that smart to begin with. It shatters the image.
Wow.
And conversely, if you grew up feeling underestimated, maybe overlooked, when success finally comes, it can be really hard to believe it's real. It just doesn't fit the narrative you learned about yourself.
So those early messages about praise, comparison, expectations, they really stick.
They absolutely do. They form the bedrock of our internal beliefs about what we're capable of.
What about the family dynamics themselves? You mentioned siblings.
Yeah, that's definitely part of it. Sometimes families, often unintentionally, kind of assign roles, right? The achiever, the creative one, the responsible one. If you're constantly compared to the successful sibling or pushed into a role that doesn't quite fit you, you can carry those doubts for years. You internalize that feeling of not quite measuring up, even when you are achieving things later in life.
So family roles can create these internal doubts.
They certainly can. But it's not just about family and upbringing.
Right. You mentioned broader messages.
Exactly. The systems we navigate play a huge role too. Schools, workplaces, even cultural norms.
How so?
Well, think about environments that value performance above everything else, where appearing confident is rewarded more than being authentic or vulnerable.
Where perfection is prize over progress.
Precisely. In those places, we learn to wear masks. We learn that confidence gets you ahead and uncertainty needs to be hidden. It almost trains us to feel like imposters if we do feel uncertain, which everyone does sometimes.
So the environment itself encourages hiding doubt.
It can, absolutely. And then you layer on societal expectations.
Like what?
Well, things like gender, race, class, cultural background, these all shape who is traditionally seen as belonging in certain spaces.
Okay. So if you don't fit the typical mold.
Exactly. If you're, say, a woman in a male-dominated tech field, or a person of color in a predominantly white institution, or a first-generation student at an elite university, there's often this unspoken message, maybe even unintentional, saying, you're different, you don't quite fit here. And that breeds self-doubt, not because you lack talent, but because you don't see people like you don't have those role models.
So it's a social thing too, not just internal.
Very much so. It highlights the social roots. It's often a response to the environment. When you walk into a room and nobody looks like you or shares your background, the pressure to prove you belong, to justify your presence, just skyrockets. And then if something goes wrong, a small mistake, it's easy to see it as confirmation. See, I knew I didn't belong. So you could almost see imposter syndrome as a kind of social response to systems that tend to lift up some voices and quiet others, systems that reward certainty and punish doubt.
That's a really powerful way to frame it. The environment reinforcing the feeling.
It really can. And then, of course, there are the underlying psychological mechanisms. Our brains are wired to protect us from rejection.
Evolutionarily speaking.
Yeah. Belonging to the group meant survival. So when we sense we might not fit in or we fear being seen as inadequate, our brain flags that as a threat.
And the inner critic kicks in.
That inner critic can actually be seen as a kind of misguided defense mechanism. It tells you you're not good enough not to hurt you, but because it thinks pushing you to be better, meaning perfect, will keep you safe, keep you accepted.
But it backfires.
It often overreaches, becomes overactive, it sets perfection as the only safe standard, and when you inevitably fall short because perfection isn't possible.
It reinforces the feeling of being unworthy.
Exactly. It reinforces the core fear.
What about cognitive biases? Do they play a part?
Oh, absolutely. That's a great point. Think about the Dunning-Kruger effect.
Remind me.
It's where people with lower competence tend to overestimate their ability, while highly competent people often underestimate theirs.
Why is that?
Because the more you know about something, the more you realize how much you don't know. Experts see the complexity, the nuance. Beginners might mistake basic knowledge for mastery.
So, ironically, feeling some self-doubt could actually mean you know more.
It can, paradoxically, yes. It can be a sign of genuine expertise and a more sophisticated understanding.
Huh. That's interesting. And what about today's world? Technology, social media?
Huge factor. Absolutely. We're constantly bombarded with everyone else's highlight reels, right? Curated success stories.
Yeah, everyone looks like they have it all figured out online.
Exactly. And it's so easy to compare that curated image to our own messy, behind-the-scenes reality and feel like we're falling desperately short. That constant comparison just fuels the self-doubt.
So understanding all these origins, childhood, systems, society, psychology, tech, it helps how?
It's critical because it helps you shift the narrative. Instead of asking, what's wrong with me? You can start asking, what factors might have shaped me to believe this about myself?
It takes the blame off, maybe.
It helps you see it's not necessarily some deep inherent flaw in you. It's often a product of experiences and messages you've absorbed along the way.
Okay, so who actually experiences this? We said high achievers, but is it broader than that?
It is incredibly broad. And yeah, the fact that it hits high achievers so often is one of the big surprises for people.
Right, you'd think success would cure it.
You would. But often, these are people who've hit all the traditional benchmarks, the degrees, the promotions, the accolades, yet internally that feeling persists. I don't really belong. The external validation just doesn't penetrate the internal doubt.
So it's not just insecure people then.
Definitely not. It cuts across all walks of life, all professions, backgrounds, levels of achievement.
Any specific fields where it's really common?
Well, we see it a lot in academia and among students, especially in those super competitive environments.
Yeah.
The pressure is intense. It feels like everyone else is brilliant. First-generation students, or those in elite schools, often really struggle with this fear of not being smart enough, of being found out.
That makes sense. What about creative fields?
Oh, absolutely. Writers, artists, musicians, designers, their work is often so personal. Putting it out there is incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah.
So there's often this fear that their last success was just luck, and the next project will be the one that exposes them as having no real talent.
Oof, that sounds rough. Professionals too, leaders.
Definitely. Even top executives, doctors, lawyers, many admit, at least privately, to feeling like they're just winging it sometimes.
Really?
Yeah. There's so much pressure to seem confident, to have all the answers, that it creates this hidden fear of being exposed as not knowing enough or not being capable enough. And leadership can be isolating, so there isn't always a place to admit that vulnerability.
So it spans all sorts of roles.
It really does. And interestingly, people who are very conscientious, they really care, they try hard, they're self-aware, they can be particularly vulnerable.
Why them?
Because their self-awareness means they see the complexities, they see their own flaws, and they can start to doubt if they truly measure up. And context, as we discussed, is huge.
Feeling like an outsider.
Exactly. If you're in an environment where you feel different because of gender, race, class, background, sexual orientation, neurodiversity, whatever it is, that feeling of not fitting the mold can seriously fuel the imposter feelings, even if you are absolutely qualified.
So women in STEM, people of color in white institutions, immigrants, working class folks in elite settings.
All classic examples where that internal narrative of I don't belong can get really loud, amplified by the environment, even when objective evidence says otherwise.
But it's often invisible, right? Because people hide it.
Totally invisible. So many people experiencing this become, as one source called them, masters of disguise. They look confident, they perform well, they say the right things. But underneath, there's that constant hum of self-doubt, that fear. What if they find out?
And that creates this illusion that everyone else has it together.
Exactly. Everyone else seems to belong, so what's wrong with me? When in reality, probably half the people in the room are feeling the same way.
Wow.
But because nobody talks about it, the silence continues, the performance goes on, and the feeling of being alone in it just gets worse.
Yeah.
It really thrives in those high-pressure places that reward results, but not vulnerability. And that perpetuates the myth of effortless success. But the research is clear. This affects people everywhere. Nobel Prize winners, Olympians, famous actors, geniuses. They've admitted to feeling this.
Even Einstein called himself a swindler.
An involuntary swindler, yeah. And the real tragedy is that it hits people doing amazing work, people who deserve to feel proud, but instead feel like they're on borrowed time. And that fear holds them back, stops them from fully stepping into their potential.
Okay, so it's widespread, often hidden. How can you actually recognize the signs in yourself? What should you look out for?
Good question. Because, yeah, it often sneaks up on you. It's usually through these subtle repeating patterns in your thoughts and actions.
Like what?
One of the biggest ones is constantly downplaying your achievements.
Okay.
You finish something significant, get praised, maybe win an award, and instead of feeling proud, you feel awkward, dismissive.
The "oh, it was nothing" response.
Exactly, or I got lucky, or anyone could have done it. Or maybe you think there was a mistake in the selection process. You minimize your effort, discount your skills. Your brain just finds ways to invalidate the success. It's almost automatic. Not humility, but a real belief you didn't earn it.
Right, I see that. What else?
That persistent fear of being found out, the exposure fear. It's this constant background anxiety that someone, somewhere, is going to pull back the curtain and reveal you're not as smart or capable as you seem.
Like you're fooling everyone?
Precisely. Feeling like everyone else is more legit, more competent, and if they knew your real thoughts, your struggles, they'd be shocked.
And that affects behavior.
Hugely. It can make you hold back in meetings, not apply for that promotion, not speak up. You might stay quiet or over-prepare obsessively just in case you get called out.
Which leads to that other sign you mentioned, overworking.
Exactly. If you don't feel you belong, you might feel this intense need to constantly earn your place again and again.
Working late, taking on too much.
Yeah. Doing way more than required, not because the job needs it, but out of fear. Fear that if you don't give 110%, they'll see you're not good enough. You check and recheck everything. Minimum effort feels dangerous.
Wow, that sounds exhausting.
It leads directly to burnout. Not always because the work itself is overwhelming, but because your inner critic is driving you relentlessly. Rest feels risky. Saying no feels like admitting failure. Asking for help feels like exposing weakness.
Okay, so downplaying success, fear of exposure, overworking. Any other big signs?
Yeah, definitely. Difficulty accepting praise is a big one.
Like compliments make you physically uncomfortable.
Yeah, you might cringe, deflect, or immediately point out flaws in whatever you did. The praise just bounces off. It doesn't sink in past the self-doubt. Then there's constant comparison, always looking at others and assuming they're more qualified, more talented, more deserving. Even if objective facts say otherwise, you feel like the visitor, they feel like the real deal.
Feeling like an outsider looking in.
Exactly. Perfectionism is another huge one.
Not just high standards, but
an unforgiving need for everything to be flawless. Small mistakes feel catastrophic, like proof of your inadequacy, which can make you avoid challenges you're not sure you can ace immediately.
right. And not internalizing success.
Yeah. You achieve something, but the satisfaction is fleeting. There's no lasting confidence boost. It feels like a one-off, and you're right back to square one for the next thing. Like past wins don't count.
And that can lead to self-sabotage.
Sadly, yes. Procrastinating on big projects out of fear, avoiding challenges, not fully grabbing opportunities, because deep down you don't believe you deserve the success anyway.
It's quite a constellation of signs. I heard there are different types identified too. Does that help understand it?
Yes, absolutely. Thinking about these types can be really illuminating. Researchers identified 5 common patterns, sort of lenses through which the self-doubt manifests. Seeing which one fits you best can help pinpoint how your imposter feelings tend to operate.
Okay, interesting. What are the 5 types?
First up is the perfectionist. For them, anything less than 100% perfect feels like total failure.
Ouch.
Yeah. They set impossibly high bars, are hypercritical of themselves. Even small mistakes are devastating. They rarely celebrate wins because they're already focused on flaws. Leads to major anxiety, often burnout.
Okay, the perfectionist. What's number 2?
Number 2 is the expert. This person feels they need to know absolutely everything about a subject before they can feel qualified.
Like they need all the certifications, all the training.
Exactly. They're constantly seeking more information, terrified of being exposed as uninformed. They might hesitate to speak up or take on tasks unless they feel they've mastered every single angle.
I can see how that would hold you back. Okay, number 3.
The soloist. This type believes true competence means doing everything entirely by themselves.
Asking for help is weakness.
To them, yes, it feels like failure. They value independence above all else, so they resist delegating, resist collaboration, often leading to isolation and, again, burnout.
Right, trying to do it all alone. Number 4.
The natural genius. These are often people praised for being naturally smart or talented early on. So they've internalized the idea that competence should be easy, effortless. If they have to struggle or work hard at something, they take it as proof they're not really a genius after all. They might avoid things they don't pick up immediately.
So effort feels like failure to them. Got it. And the last one.
Number 5 is the superhuman. This person measures their worth by how much they can juggle and how well they do it all.
Trying to excel in every single role.
Exactly. Perfect employee, perfect partner, perfect friend, perfect parent. All at once. They push themselves past exhaustion, taking on way too much because they feel they have to do it all and do it perfectly to be worthy.
Wow. Seeing those types lot out, it makes it feel more concrete. somehow.
It does. And remembering that even incredibly successful people have felt these things can be really powerful, too. It normalizes it.
Yeah, you mentioned some examples earlier. Can we revisit a few?
Yeah.
It really drives the point home.
Absolutely. Let's start with someone like Maya Angelou, phenomenal writer, poet. She famously said something like, I have written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find out now. I've run a game on everybody.
After 11 books, that's incredible.
It shows how deep that disconnect can be. Or Tom Hanks, hugely successful, beloved actor.
Yeah.
He's talked about thinking, how did I get here? When are they going to discover I'm a fraud and take it all away?
Wow. Even Tom Hanks feels that way sometimes.
It seems so. And Emma Watson, known for activism, she's spoken about feeling uncomfortable with recognition, like she doesn't really belong or deserve it.
It's really striking hearing these names.
Isn't it? Michelle Obama talked about walking into places like Princeton or Harvard Law and questioning if she was good enough, despite clearly being qualified. Howard Schultz, the Starbucks founder, admitted feeling like an imposter even while building that empire. Sheryl Sandberg felt like a fraud early in her career.
And Einstein.
Albert Einstein, calling himself an involuntary swindler. It just shows success doesn't automatically cure it. And hearing them share it helps break down the stigma, the shame, makes you feel less alone.
Definitely. So, okay, it's tied to these feelings, these behaviors.
Yeah.
But what's going on psychologically? It sounds like it's really rooted in our thinking.
Exactly. At its heart, imposter syndrome is driven by distorted thinking patterns, cognitive distortions.
Cognitive distortions, like ways our brain tricks us.
Sort of. They're habitual ways of interpreting things, often negatively and inaccurately, without us even realizing it.
Can you give some examples of those distortions in action?
Sure. A really common one is discounting the positive. You achieve something good, but your brain immediately explains it away. Oh, that was just luck. They felt sorry for me. It wasn't that impressive. You don't let the positive information land.
Minimizing the good stuff. Got it.
Another one is all or nothing thinking. Black and white. You're either perfect, a total success, or you're a complete failure, an imposter. There's no room for nuance, for being good enough, for learning from mistakes.
So one small mistake means you're a total fraud.
In that mindset, yes. Then there's catastrophizing, making a mountain out of a molehill. A small slip-up feels like it will lead to absolute disaster and exposure.
Assuming the worst outcome.
Always. And personalization, taking blame for things that aren't actually your fault or aren't entirely within your control. If a team project has issues, you immediately assume it's all because of your inadequacy.
Wow. Discounting the positive, all or nothing, catastrophizing, personalization. Those sound like tough patterns to break. Where do they come from?
Often, as we touched on, they have roots in our upbringing.
Right. The conditional praise, the comparison.
Exactly. An environment where your worth felt tied to performance. Maybe mistakes were punished harshly. Maybe praise was rare or always qualified. Even being labeled the smart one creates pressure, lack of encouragement, sibling rivalries. It all shapes those thought patterns. But it's also reinforced by the wider social environment.
Schools, work, media.
Yes.
Again.
Systems that emphasize constant performance, perfection, outward success. And of course, social comparison, especially online, feeds feelings of inadequacy when you compare your messy reality to curated feeds.
So it's a mix of personal history and cultural reinforcement.
It really is. Understanding that helps you see where the thoughts come from.
And the impact. It sounds like it's not just an internal feeling. It really affects your life.
Oh, absolutely. The impact is significant. Emotionally, it starts with anxiety, right? That constant tension, the worry about being exposed.
Which leads to burnout, as you said.
Often, yes. The pressure is relentless. You feel depleted, empty, but still keep pushing. And for some, it can spiral further, contributing to feelings of depression. If your self-worth is totally tied to performance and you constantly feel like you're failing, it's a heavy burden.
And career-wise.
Big impact. Holding back from promotions, avoiding leadership, staying quiet in meetings, underestimating your value in salary negotiations, opportunities are missed. A promotion can even feel like a threat, more chances to be exposed.
Wow. Relationships, too.
Yeah. Fear of being truly seen, warts and all. Maybe being overly self-critical in friendships or questioning your abilities as a partner or parent. It can create distance or insecurity. It's not just the feeling, it's what it makes you do or not do. It limits potential.
Yeah, it really sounds pervasive. And you mentioned culture. How does society kind of feed into this?
That's a crucial piece. Impostor syndrome isn't just psychological, it's shaped by cultural values. Think about hustle culture.
Right. Glorifying exhaustion.
Exactly. Constant productivity equals worth. If you're not grinding 24/7, you feel inadequate, even if you're already overworked. It creates this myth that success requires relentless, visible effort, feeding imposter feelings if you need rest or struggle.
And social media.
Constant comparison engine. Seeing only the filtered, curated successes makes it easy to believe everyone else has it figured out, amplifying your own feelings of falling short.
Plus just high expectations generally.
Yes, societal pressure, family pressure, self-imposed pressure to excel everywhere. To be the perfect student, employee, parent, partner, have the perfect body, the perfect life. It sets an impossible standard, making feelings of failure almost inevitable. Recognizing these external forces is key to breaking free. You have to redefine success on your own terms.
Okay, let's tackle some myths.
Yeah.
There seem to be a lot of misunderstandings about this.
Absolutely. Good idea. Let's bust a few. Myth number 1. Only people with low self-esteem get imposter syndrome.
And the fact.
Fact. As we've said, high performers are often the most affected. It's about the internal disconnect, not necessarily overall low self-worth.
Okay, myth 2. It's just about feeling like a fraud at work.
Fact. Nope. It can absolutely bleed into academics, family life, relationships, parenting, hobbies, trying anything new. Any area where competence and belonging are involved.
Right. Myth 3. Only women experience it.
Fact. Definitely not true. It affects people of all genders.
Yeah.
Men experience it too, though societal expectations might make them less likely to talk about it openly.
Myth 4. You can just think positive and get over it.
Fact. If only it were that easy. It takes real self-awareness, challenging those deep-seated beliefs, changing behaviors. It's often a process, maybe even lifelong management for some. Positive thinking alone usually isn't enough.
Okay. And myth 5. It's just a phase you'll grow out of.
Fact. It can lessen with awareness and effort, but it doesn't always just disappear on its own. It can persist or flare up at different life stages or transitions, but it is manageable.
That's really helpful clarification. So, moving towards managing it, what are some practical strategies? What can people actually do?
Okay, practical steps. First, and maybe most importantly, name it to tame it.
Just acknowledging it.
Yes. Recognize the feeling. Say to yourself, okay, this is imposter syndrome talking. Giving it a name separates it from your identity. It's a pattern, not you.
Right. What's next?
Reframe your thoughts. Actively challenge those negative, irrational beliefs. When you think, I only got lucky, counter it. Look for the objective evidence of your skills, your effort. Keep a log of positive feedback or accomplishments if you need to.
Collect the evidence against the inner critic.
Exactly. Third, share your feelings. Talk to someone you trust, a friend, a mentor, a therapist. Hearing yourself say it out loud and realizing you're not alone can be incredibly powerful. It breaks the isolation.
Reduces the shame.
Absolutely. Fourth, celebrate small wins. Don't just brush them off. Acknowledge every step forward, every achievement, no matter how small you think it is. It helps build a more accurate picture of your capabilities over time.
Rewire the brain to notice the good stuff.
Kind of, yeah. Fifth, practice self-compassion. This is huge. When you mess up or feel doubt, treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding you'd offer a friend in the same situation. Don't beat yourself up.
Be kind to yourself.
Yes. And finally, seek support. Surround yourself with people who are genuinely encouraging. And if these feelings are really impacting your life, consider talking to a therapist or counselor. Professional help can make a big difference.
Name it, reframe it, share it, celebrate wins, self-compassion, seek support. That sounds like a solid toolkit.
It's a start. It takes practice, it's ongoing work, but these can really help shift the pattern.
Okay, brilliant. And now, let's do our language tip of the episode. Some useful phrases related to all this.
Sounds good. Let's dive in. First, fake it till you make it.
Acting confident even when you don't feel it, hoping the confidence follows.
Exactly. Sometimes adopting the outward behavior can influence the inner state. Next, self-doubt.
That core lack of belief in yourself.
Then mental block.
Like when your brain just freezes up, maybe out of anxiety.
Precisely. A temporary inability to think clearly. How about overcome a challenge?
Successfully dealing with something difficult, pushing through.
Good. Confidence boost.
Something that gives you a sudden lift in self-assurance.
Yeah. Perfectionism.
We talked about this, the need for everything to be flawless.
Right. Imposter feeling.
Just a general term for those internal sensations of feeling like a fraud.
Yep. Captures that specific feeling well. Affirmation.
Positive statements you say to yourself to build confidence.
Exactly. Like, I am capable. I belong here. Then burnout.
That state of total exhaustion from chronic stress, which imposter syndrome can definitely cause.
It certainly can. And lastly, self-acceptance.
Learning to accept yourself fully, flaws and all, maybe.
That's the goal, isn't it? Accepting who you are right now. Great list.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway? If you remember one thing.
I think it's this. You are almost certainly more capable than you think you are. That feeling of being an imposter, it doesn't cancel out your hard work, your skills, your accomplishments. They are real. You do belong. You have earned your place.
And that self-doubt isn't necessarily the truth.
Not at all. It's a feeling, a pattern of thought. Sometimes it even means you're stretching yourself, growing. And crucially, you are so far from alone in feeling this way.
So let me ask you, listening, have you ever felt like an imposter? Take a moment to think about your own experiences with this.
And know this, you are not a fraud. Managing these feelings is about acknowledging them, challenging the negative thoughts, consciously reframing your perspective.
Celebrating what you achieve, big or small.
And reaching out for support when you need it.
Ultimately, it's about embracing the reality that you are enough, just as you are.
Well said. And if you feel comfortable, share your own stories or strategies in the comments below. Hearing from each other really helps normalize this and breaks down that isolation we talked about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And please, if you found this useful, support the show. Like, comment, subscribe. It genuinely helps us reach more people who might need to hear this.
Please do. Share it with anyone you think might benefit.
Remember, you're not an imposter. You're likely someone pushing boundaries, learning, growing. And that's something to be incredibly proud of.
Take care of yourselves, celebrate those wins, however small they seem, and keep believing in your potential.
Until next time. Thanks for diving in with us. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. We really do look forward to hearing from you.